part that probably took me the longest, trying to find listen to the dominant take and then just talk about it. Because sometimes with a lot of these deathcore bands, and this is not a bad thing, I use vocal layers all the time, right? So I do the same thing, but they'll have minimum 2, but oftentimes 4 vocal layers. So I listened for the main vocal layer and I talk about that one, and then I just ignore the others. I'm like, okay, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the main one because that's what everybody's hearing. And that probably took me to get really just comfortable doing it, maybe a year.
Headbangers. Welcome back to the Headbangers podcast, where your hosts Nathan and Brad. Here today we're joined by Mark from the Kardavox Academy and Kardashev. How are you doing, man, to start off with?
I'm doing well. I'm a little tired. I got a little bit of a cough, so if I do have to cough, I'll lean away from the mic so as not to blow anybody's ears out. But I'm good. Happy to be here. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much as well. So let's start with a little icebreaker. What's your funniest gig tour story? Any gig experience? What's the funniest thing that sticks out in your mind to you?
Oh, okay. So I have one. I actually have one for this. So it would be when we played Tech Fest. So back in 2015, we played UK Tech Fest, and we had never played a stage that big, and we were on the side stage. We weren't on the main stage. We were on the side stage, and it was actually pretty cool. We had a decent turnout. We had some people drive in from Wales and Scotland and stuff to see us. So that was really neat. But not ever being on a stage that size, we didn't think about the physical logistics, and so the low end of the show, the bass, the kick drums, all this, it made the stage shake a lot. Well, we were running backing tracks on our laptop that had a disk drive, and so the stage would shake, the disk drive would skip, and the music would just cut out whenever anything big happened. So if there's a moment where it's da da dum dum bop, boom, and everything hits, the whole set would just go silent. And I was really nervous, so we got a recording back, and some of my vocals sounded like absolute dog shit because I'd never played something that big before, and they were like, yo, we took this recording, we'll sell it to you, and I was like, just burn it, just burn the whole thing.
Or in the furnace.
Yeah, it was the most fun I've ever had, and we weren't too worried about it because we were shit, just chalk that up to lack of experience. It was one of the most fun experiences I ever had, but it was also objectively one of our worst shows we've ever played. So yeah, that was a good one.
I've never actually been to Tech Fest, to be honest. I think me and Nathan have talked about it, haven't we? But it's just a bit out of the way for us. But every time I see the lineup, it just looks absolutely stacked. So I imagine playing it must be pretty cool as well.
Oh yeah, it's super fun. The bathroom situation is rough.
As expected. Yep.
It's rough. We actually a couple times would wait. We would coordinate. So it'd be hey, you got to go. Okay, no, I do. All right, no, I can probably hold it for about 15, 20 more minutes. And then we would get in the car and we'd drive to the nearest populated place and just use the bathrooms there. But the lineup was really cool that year.
Oh yeah, we've always like Brad said, we've always been super tempted to go, but we're also incredibly lazy when it comes to travel. So it's if it's not in a decent vicinity away from where we're based, we'll be well, maybe in the future we'll get round to it.
All right, so this is always a fun question that I like to ask. So for and we'll go in terms of time, because if you say kilometers, I'm not going to know what the hell you're talking about. But what, as far as travel time, is a decent vicinity to you?
An hour. If it's an hour, there and back, I can just about do it.
Yeah.
But anything
30
more
miles,
than that,
50 miles, pretty good.
Really?
Anything more?
Oh,
nah.
That's so funny, because over here now, objectively, this is worse because it means our cities are not walkable really at all, and there's so much pavement. It's hot everywhere. But for us, an hour, that's that's a decent drive, but it's nothing. It's nothing. So it's always interesting. But again, it comes at the expense of not so good infrastructure sometimes. So
oh yeah, I always find that so funny, the difference between Britain and America, because it's we can we complain all the time going, oh, there's no drummers in Leeds, but you'll get a drummer that's in London, you're yeah, but that's 3 hours away. Meanwhile, you got bands that are in different states, so it's an 8 hour drive between it, but they manage to, we just go, yeah, but 3 hours. Oh no, I can't do that. It's like what? It's so funny. We've literally like one of the smallest countries, but like, and anything above an hour, it's like, nah, I'm gonna give it a miss. Yeah, I think it's because our public transport as well, if you have to use that, is completely fucked. So like, and it might be like, oh yeah, it takes an hour to get there on the bus, but it'll take like another 45 minutes for that bus to even get to you. So it's like,
oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
that makes a little sense.
Yeah, it's honestly fucked. But I want to sort of go into your YouTube channel a little bit as well, like to sort of open it up. And we got into it a bit before when I got, obviously, big massive thank you for like putting out those videos, because you know, if it wasn't like for you, I probably wouldn't be doing screaming or anything like that. So oh no, honestly, I struggled for years trying to like mimic bands, and always would just fucking throw out my voice so much to the point where I was like, can I even do this? And I think I bought the art of screaming. I found that helped a little bit, but then I found like when I actually watched someone break down techniques from vocalists that I also admired, you know, like it really helped me. So I kind of want to get into like what was like your thought process when you started the YouTube channel, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. So it's kind of a long story that I will you know, sort of condense for you a little bit, but basically like I was just really fucking sick of, I'm assuming I can drop F-bombs on your
channel. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
You can say whatever you want.
All right, hell yeah. So I was really fucking sick of corporate life because I've never really been good at like any sort of like desk job. You know what I mean? And like, it's funny. I'm like a really level-headed dude, but I've got a little bit of like an authority problem. If I feel, and this is going to sound super pompous and it's not, but like, if I feel like that person does not deserve to be in charge of me, I have a real hard time following their instruction. And so, you know, like in a corporate setting, somebody would be like, hey, this is the new policy. And I would be the guy in the meeting who's like, that's literally worse. That is literally a dumb idea. Why are we doing that? And they'd be like, well, you know, this is just being passed down. It's like, oh my God. So we're doing something that none of us know why we're doing it, and it's making things worse. Great. And so I was just, you ain't gonna get promoted that way. You know, you're not gonna make it through corporate America very well that way, depending on the industry, I guess. And then so at some point, Kardashev, we released a playthrough of me doing a song called Beyond Sun and Moon out in the woods, and the reception to that was really, really great. Right. The reception to that was really, really good, which is interesting because like objectively, it's not a very good performance. I was super, super overheated. I was super tired. I'm out of shape. So I was like huffing and puffing. And that meant a lot of my singing was like kind of flat. But people were like really kind about it and they really liked it. And so I remember thinking to myself, like, well, shit, like if people think this is really good, and like I actually like in a better environment could show them something that is actually objectively pretty good, and I've got, you know, a little bit of schooling under my belt, so I understand how this stuff works. Maybe I could start like a vocal coaching thing, because at the time like I think probably the biggest person on YouTube doing harsh vocal stuff was Mary Z, Voice Hacks. And I was like, maybe I could do something like that. So I probably took, from there, about a year just studying, making sure I was filling the gaps. I knew a lot, but there were a couple gaps in my knowledge I needed to fix. And then taking on free students, charging them nothing, because I was like, well, I got to make sure I can actually do this. And then the idea was to supplement YouTube videos. And then skipping a lot of stuff. I met a guy, Alex Carter, who lives out in the UK as well. He's my business partner, and he was like, yo, we should try reaction videos, see how that goes. And they went well. And so I was like, okay, we could do reaction videos, and maybe like we'll never be the biggest reaction channel, but that will funnel lessons and get me out of the corporate grind. And sure enough, it did. So that's the still long but short version of why that all happened. I was sick of corporate America. I recognized that I had a skill. I practiced it. It worked. And here we are.
That's really exciting, to be honest. I love that, like any story when you just escape from like the office lifestyle and you manage to do what you do. And it's great because everybody has their own different origin story. Like, you know, because I do like video stuff and I get fucking frustrated because I'm like, when's my opportunity gonna come? And just like I've been working in like, you know, an office sort of scenario as well, retail, and then I managed to like actually get a job doing something creative. So I'm so excited to just leave that sort of mundane business behind and just like actually start something fresh. But it is interesting because like you never know when it's going to come, and everyone's story is different, and that's what I find very appealing. It's nice.
Yeah, for sure. That's exciting that you got a more creative focused job, because like, yo, that corporate, it can, you know, and it's good. Not for us.
I still sort of work in a corporate like sort of environment. I because I'm an IT guy like through the day, so it's like not that bad now because I work for like a really small sort of business, so like everyone knows each other, so it's not like you're getting like shit passed down. Like the guy who runs the business will literally just tell you, oh yeah, this is how we're gonna do stuff. It's like, okay, yep, no worries.
And he gets free crates of beer.
Yeah, hey, and we get free crates of beer every now and again. We've got one of our clients is like a beer company, so like whenever it's like Christmas or something like that, we all get like a massive case of beer under our desks. So he's like, it's pretty good. They rented out an arcade for us last week. You know, like they treat us well. So yeah, I'm just hoping like still the like podcast and all that. I'd love to do that full time. So you never know. But
yeah, for sure. You got to keep at it and see where it goes. But hell yeah, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. I wanted to ask as well because I'm obviously like Nathan. I've just binge watched your videos all through COVID. I think that's when I first discovered you, and I was just like, right, I've got plenty of time to sit and just do nothing, and I just watched like tons and tons. I was just so impressed, and the thing that I find most admirable is just the fact that you can just listen to a vocal pattern or a vocal technique, and you're like, that's that one. Or like they'll just like they'll start screaming a bunch of noise, and you're like, yeah, that's this, and you'll start to deconstruct it. And how long did that take for it to become second nature that you could just listen to a vocalist spit out a pattern and you're like, right, that's the vocal fry, or that's this, or that's that, you know?
Sure. So it took a little while. And you know, one thing that is important to note is I do get stuff wrong sometimes. Like sometimes I'll talk with the vocalist and they'll be like, hey, like you said this and it sounds really similar. I'm actually doing this. And they're, you know, and then they're very cool about it. And then we have a cool conversation. But I do get stuff wrong sometimes. So I went to answer that question, I went to school for speech therapy and speech science. I didn't finish my degree because I got super sick and I had to drop out. So I kind of came in with a little bit of an advantage, right? I kind of already knew what vocal fry was as far as the register. I knew what the false chords were. I knew the anatomy of the throat. I knew what creates distortion. The tricky thing for me was a lot less being able to be like, that's a fry scream, that's a false chord scream, and listening through production. That was the hardest part, because like if you've got a raw vocal track, you can hear what's going on. But if you've got like a wall of sound, 6 vocal layers, maybe 3 of them are fry, 3 of them are false chord, and then there's like, you know, a synth over top, you're just like, what the fuck am I even listening to, right? That's when it got hard. And so that's the part that probably took me the longest, trying to find like, listen to like the dominant take and then just talk about it. Because sometimes with a lot of these deathcore bands, and this is not a bad thing, like I use vocal layers all the time, right? So I do the same thing. But you know, they'll have like minimum 2, but oftentimes 4 vocal layers. So I listened for the main vocal layer and I talk about that one, and then I just ignore the others. I'm like, okay, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the main one, because that's what everybody's hearing. And that probably took me like, to get really just comfortable doing it, maybe like a year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's really interesting about the background though with doing speech therapy, and I guess that kind of helps. It's interesting that's the origin story for that.
Yeah, and I never did speech therapy. I never. So I always tell people like, I'm not a speech therapist. I'm not certified. I did a lot of schooling. I got about halfway up through my senior year, and then I got, like I said, super sick, and that was kind of killed that. So I've never actually like given the therapy. That's an important note.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of mad, like sort of watching you break it down, because like I said, I learned a lot from doing it. But I remember when Brad wanted to learn how to do vocals, I think Brad knows what's coming. But like I remember it was just after we did like, I think like episode 2 of like the podcast, and he was there like, so like how did you learn how to do screaming and all that? I was like, oh yeah, well, like one great YouTube channel to check out. I'll give him like your YouTube channel. I'm like, but like he went, how do you get it from like the diaphragm? I don't know where the diaphragm is. I'm like, well, one tip I found out was like putting like your fingers in your hips, like sort of like below your ribs and barking, and then just feeling the muscles sort of go. And like I remember me and Brad for like 10 minutes was just like barking at each other in his room. And he's like,
yeah, my neighbors must have been so
I
confused,
was just
man.
like, can you feel where the diaphragm is now, Brad? And he's there like, like
yeah.
It was honestly so funny.
That's hilarious. And that's kind of like how my approach is. Like, you know, with like baseline vocals, like I like very much, and it's not just me, like it's a lot of people, but I like to base it very much on what we already do naturally, right? Because like I'm not going to do it obviously into the mic because it'll fuck your levels and make editing a pain. But like, you know, if you saw Brad, you know, like across the street and you wanted to call out to him, you would engage your core and you'd be using your diaphragm, right? You can't like actually feel your diaphragm, but you'd be using it, right? It's getting people to realize that usually some people are really soft spoken, but most people, like 90% of people, they actually already know how to do a lot of the stuff for screaming. It's just putting it in the context of like being intentional, right? One analogy I use with my students is if like I put my arms up and stretch and link my hands, I'm just stretching. If I hold that for 5 minutes, now I'm doing yoga, right? So it's kind of like that. If I just kind of like grunt, right? I'm just grunting. If I hold it for like, you know, a couple seconds and think about balance and projection, well, now I'm false chord screaming, right? So.
Oh yeah, definitely. It is so interesting. Sort of seeing you figure it out. I want to also ask, like, obviously, like you're in Kardashev, and obviously you've also got a full-time YouTube channel. What's like the biggest challenge of sort of managing both of those like at the same time? I imagine it gets like pretty hectic sometimes.
It does, you know. So actually, a lot of the brain of Kardashev is Nico. Nico is the main composer. He writes a lot of the music. Like I might have like I might write like one section of a song across like 4 songs. I might write like one guitar lead or make a suggestion, but what I like actually write is not very much. It's probably about 3% of the final composition that you hear, other than my vocal lines. I write my own lyrics and my melodies and all that. Nico also does a lot for the promotion and everything like that. And that's kind of the way that we've structured it. Because I have a full-time business, like you said. I've got a kid on the way. Sean, our drummer, he's got 3 kids and a full-time business, right? So Alex is in a band called Holy Fun, and he's on the road. So we all kind of talked about it, and Nico was like, well, let's make Kardashev like mostly me, and then you guys almost like kind of work as contractors. And we were like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that's how we do it. It can get tough. Like just the other day, I put in 11 hours, which was a lot, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad, really. It's just one of the best skills I've learned for like life balance, not just work-life balance, is just saying no to stuff. Like, you know, somebody might be like, yo, I need you to do this. And you look at your other priorities and you just tell them no. Right. And sometimes I'll tell people no because like I need to get some video games in or else my brain is going to explode. Right. It's like, oh, no, I can't. I'm busy. What are you busy doing? Literally nothing. Like turning my brain off is an important part of my day. Yeah. So it's tricky, but it's manageable.
Yeah, I think it's saying no is definitely important sometimes because it's so easy to get overwhelmed. You kind of feel sometimes like you have to do everything right now at once. And that's the way, like there's either 2 ways. Either you just burn yourself out because you do everything at once, or you just like, you think about everything that you need to do. So you just do nothing, which I kind of encompass both. So it just depends on what day I feel. But yeah, you're right. You need to have time to like just chill out, play some Elden Ring and just, you know, do nothing. It's just very therapeutic and enjoyable.
Exactly. Yes. And seconded on Elden Ring, strangely infuriating, yet also therapeutic. It's weird, but it's
very true.
Oh no,
yeah,
I can't play any of the sort of soul style games. Yeah, no, me and Brad have spoke about it in depth so many times when I'm there. Like, I was like, it's not even that I dislike the games. I'm just not the right person for it because I'll obsess about it. And then like, I'll get so angry about not being able to beat like one boss. I'll stay on it until like, God knows how late at night, trying to focus it. And before I know it, it'll be there white knuckling the controller after my 54th time trying to do one boss. So I'm there. I said to Brad, it's not that I even dislike the games. It's just that I know my brain and my brain's not right for the game. So I'll just avoid it.
Yeah. You know, I used to be the same with Souls-Likes game, and it's weird. Like, I'm gonna totally tell this story a little over the top and a little over exaggerated, but that's because it's more interesting that way. But I had like a philosophical like life moment in Elden Ring. I was like, because I'd tried Bloodborne, I'd tried Dark Souls 3, and I never finished them for those reasons. It's the same reason, right? And then I remember like Elden Ring was just good enough to keep me there, right? And I remember I had saved up like a ton of runes, not souls, runes. I had saved up a ton of runes and you know, made it so far, and then I got to the boss and I died, right? And then I went back to get my runes, died again. So those runes are gone. Like all fucking like, you know, 200,000 runes gone. And I remember feeling good. I remember being like, wow, now that I've lost everything, there's no stress with this boss. Like, I'm not stressed. Like, losing, like, dying doesn't matter. And so, like, for the rest of the game, I was just like, dying doesn't fucking matter. And I would do these, like, crazy hard boss fights, and I'd be like, it's all good, man. It's all good. And I actually found myself getting through bosses a little bit easier, a little bit faster, except for a couple of them. Just, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
You know?
Yes, I think that's the reason why me as well. I've cling to this game a lot more than the other Dark Souls, because you know you could keep challenging a boss over and over again. In the previous games, like, you'd have no choice but to follow that linear path, and that's it. And this one, like, you can just fuck off and do like a side quest for a bit. You can gather some material. You can just run around and do nothing really.
Oh yeah.
Or you can do the boss. Sometimes I do get into the swing of just trying it over and over again, and then I get frustrated. But I like the option of that. I don't have to do that. I can just explore if I want to. And I think that's why it's the better game of all of them.
Yeah. You get like an anime hero arc. You know, you can't beat the guy, and then you go up to the mountains, you train, you come back, you kick his ass. It's like, that's how it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I had to get it refunded because I was like, I already felt like this obsession.
Oh no.
Yeah. So like, I think I can't remember how long you can play it for before you can't get it refunded. But I think it was just along that barrier. And I was there like, no, I can already feel like something like ticking in my brain. So I'm there like, I'm just gonna refund it so then I can't play it again. So I had to do that, and then just downloaded No Man's Sky instead. And I was like, you know what, this is gonna be the obsession now.
Piece of games.
Yeah. It's just because there's some that goes on like with those types of like games. Like it happened with the Fallen Order game. So the Star Wars one. It happened with that, and that was the only one like sort of I finished. I say finished. I got to the last boss, turned down the difficulty, tried it another like 20 times, and then went, fuck it, I'm watching the ending on YouTube. So, you know, it's just something that happens. I don't know why. I just get so obsessed with trying to get past like one point. I think it's because in my brain, if I don't get past that one point, even though I can fuck off and do something else, it feels like something's not complete. So like I have to do it. So I can't play those types of games. I think it fucks me up.
No, I feel you. I feel you for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm absolutely loving the new single, by the way, Glass Phantoms. I think it sits on the fence of being like therapeutic, but also goes really hard. It's like a weird sort of balance, and it goes so well. Like lyrically then for you, and just the concepts of the upcoming release, what was inspiring you for it? Like, what just inspires you in general to write lyrics about?
That's kind of tough because I often don't really know what I'm writing about until like I'm partway through. But I think that a lot of the lyrics, so in Kardashev, we have like two separate things, right? We've got like the Kardashev mythos, right? And that's like the sci-fi stories that follow characters and stuff. And then we have the non-Kardashev mythos, which is not related. There's nothing sci-fi about it. There's nothing fancy about it. And that's where Liminal Rite it sits. And usually with those, I'm often writing about like my own issues a little bit / like societal issues. How creative, I know. But you know what Liminal Rite eventually ended up being about was it was kind of about like an unhealthy obsession with the past. Like, you know, sometimes like and I do this a lot because I I was lucky enough to have a really dope childhood, like really good. Not everybody has that, but mine was awesome, right? I was in a very small community with only people who like mostly cared about each other. My world was very small and comfortable and certain, and then I got to college and life just from the age of 20 to almost 34 now, life has just become more confusing and more chaotic, and the older I get, the less I feel like I know what's going on and the less control I feel like I have. And so sometimes what I'll do is I will kind of get stuck in the past because it's comfortable, right? Like it's okay to have like our old favorite games that we like and watch an old show, but sometimes like I'll exist in 2022, but emotionally and mentally I'm in like 1998, right? And that's not healthy. So the album is kind of like an allegorical story of this older man who his life sucks for reasons we don't know, but he goes back home trying to reclaim the comfort and the certainty that he had when he was a kid. Obviously that's impossible, right? The house is overgrown, nobody lives there anymore, it's falling apart, and there are some things from my life that I've sort of interjected, although the family that he's remembering isn't a one for one with my family. Like in the album, he remembers accidentally killing his brother. I never had a brother that I accidentally killed, so that's good. But yeah, so basically like taking something that I struggle with and sort of amplifying it. And I think that, an unhealthy obsession with the past is also present somewhat societally as well. Everything is a sequel. Everything is a everything
remake.
is a sequel, a remake. But I think even like more deeply as well, like not like I'm not going to try to get too political on you guys, but like if you think about it, a lot of like the far right stuff, like it's like clinging on to these old traditions that like are clearly and objectively not useful. They're not useful. They don't help anybody. They're like, well, that's my heritage. It's like, so what? Like, okay, your heritage sucks. You know what I mean? Like those people were garbage. And so just remembering the past fondly can be useful, but obsessing over the past can be detrimental, and it can make you remember the past incorrectly. And so the album's kind of about that, and that's kind of where I drew my inspiration.
I'm totally feeling that, to be honest, because I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, including myself. I think when you think to the past, it can sometimes be like a safeguard, And I think, like I said, watching an old show, old album, thinking about these fond memories. But then sometimes if you really think about it too much, I think you're doing it because you're scared of the future and what tomorrow is going to be. So you don't want to think about it at all. And then that ends up just being bad on both sides. But I think that's an interesting concept. I like the whole thing about it being overgrown, and like you're trying to recreate something that's not going to be the same anymore. So yeah, I'm totally feeling that. I can't wait to listen to some of the lyrics.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate it. And it's difficult because like it is also important to remember the past, because like then we can there are a lot of things that we can learn and carry forward. Like we can carry forward the best parts of like society and leave the bad parts in the past. Like there were a lot of cool things about the Roman Empire, but let's leave Colosseums, let's leave that back there. So yeah, well, I'm glad it vibes. I'm glad it vibes with you, man. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I think also on your point of like, I feel like society is obsessed with the past. Like that like 100% rings true, because I always like I just saw the advert for like the new Top Gun. I was just thinking, did that need to be made? Like,
after so long as well. After so long.
I was there like, did it need to? And then I watched it. It's pretty fucking good. But totally. It's really good. But like, totally. I was there like that. It just feels like it's like the we're living like the South Park bit where it's like remember berries. It's like, I remember. Like, like shit. Like they're constantly feeding us like shit like that. Where it's like even like Stranger Things that's like set in a time, like for nostalgia. It's like, people that will grow up in that time could watch it and go, yeah, I remember that. Everything's just sprinkled with it. Like absolutely.
That was doing it right, though, to be fair. I think Stranger Things, like, that's how to take a bit of the past and make it something new, as opposed to just like making a sequel that's just like completely mundane and boring.
Yeah, I hear you there. And it's all balance, and balance is tricky on a societal level because like, nobody's going to say like, hey guys, we're making a nostalgia movie, and then nobody else is going like, oh, okay, we'll hold off on ours then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not gonna happen. So it's straight like I would never like look at one individual nostalgia based thing and be like, that's bad because nostalgia bad. You know, it's more about like the trend across the whole, and that's where I get too dumb to really understand what's going on, and I go, I don't know, guys, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think it's like a mixture of like, because like at the moment, I mean, like I feel like we've been hit with so much shit. Like we have COVID, we've got obviously the Ukraine situation going on now. I think
Yeah.
in a way, like some of it's like, hey guys, yeah, but remember when you wasn't like all collectively shitting yourself over these things? So it's like,
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like it's just to sort of take your brain away from it for like 5 minutes because you're there like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. That was great. Like,
Yeah.
so I think it's a mixture of that. Whereas like I feel like we crave it because it's like we don't really want to live like at the moment, like there's a lot of shit going on in the present that we don't want to focus on. There's nice stuff that happened in the past, but then we're
Yeah.
also collectively also shitting ourselves about the future. So we just go,
Yeah.
right, instead of just like living in both, I'll just like remember this for now, like
Yeah.
just to sort of take my mind off that.
Yeah,
think
because
you're
like
right.
being like an adult as well, I think we all crave that sort of childhood innocence, you know, where time seems to stand still. But you know, you can never chase that again. You've just got to, I think, just come to terms with where things are now and just sort of embrace a bit of the past, but just sort of, you know, be ready for the future as well. Otherwise, you might be a bit.
No, I agree. I
I
agree.
have no one going with this.
Yeah, so still on sort of like the new album, what would you say was the biggest sort of challenge that you faced whilst writing the album? Or is as well, is there any new elements that we are going to see in this album that we haven't seen before in a Kardashev release?
Yeah, lots. This album. So I think that this album is one of our strongest things we've created, that we've written. But it was hard. This was a hard album to do, and you know, I can't speak for the other guys. I know that a big difficulty, especially for Nico, was the logistics. You know, you talked about a drummer living 3 hours away. Our drummer lives in Canada. So like, you know,
And it's just
he's
before being like, oh, 30-minute drive.
exactly, yeah, yeah. He lives in he lives near Vancouver. So we're like down here in the cactus and the dust, and he's up there in like, you know, the Pacific Northwest. Amazing sushi up there. Holy shit. So good. But you know, the logistics was really hard for him. For me, it was a lot of the singing, to be honest with you, because you know, coming from The Bearing of Shadows, which was the EP we released prior to this, there's one song where I really belted and gave a lot of bravado in a song called Snow Sleep. And I had intended for that to just be like a flavor. And like I knew my way around belting, like I got it, you know, but people loved it. People were like, oh, this is great. And like, you know, while it's true that we don't really like write for the fans, we do, like, you know, like everybody, if somebody's like, yo dude, you make amazing nachos, the next time they come over, you're gonna be like, maybe I should make nachos again because they really like them, you know.
Mhm.
So the album is just dense, with a lot of belting, with a lot of powerful singing, and learning how to, because it's one thing to like belt a note, and it's another thing to like belt, maintain a melody, hold the balance and everything. And so I really pushed myself. I think in a couple songs a little too hard, to be quite honest. There are two songs where you can hear that I'm reaching outside of my comfort zone a little bit, and it's a little bit shouty, a little bit strainy. Nobody has noticed so far, so hell yeah. The people who do know, the people who like the other vocal coaches and stuff, they'll be like, you're straining a little bit, and I'll be like, fuck yeah, I am. But yeah, the singing was so tricky because it's something that I wasn't comfortable with. And you know, if this album does super well, I'm stuck with it, and then I'll have to do it forever. So that's kind of like, it's kind of intimidating a little bit, but I think overall, it came across really well. And I was lucky that, you know, Nico, who does all of our recording, we don't have to pay for studio time, so he was very patient. He was like, you know, hey, if we got to do 40 takes, we'll do 40 takes. It's no big deal. There were some sections where like there were no one takes to be had that day. That's for sure. You know.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Because I feel as well when, especially like if you're recording vocals, it can take so much out of you. Like I remember when my band when we recorded our first track,
Mm.
our producer Adam, there were like these highs I kept having to, I kept doing. I've always like naturally gone for, like just lower fry, just because that's my comfort zone. But I thought, oh, I'll take myself out of the comfort zone. Like we've got kind of black metal sections, I'll do highs, and I was doing my highs, and he kept going, I think you can do higher than that. So I was like really, really pushing, and he's there like, I still think you can do higher. So I think if you listen to record it, you can hear me in some of the high sections like really fucking straining like a little bit, like just because it's like I was like really pushing. Like I think it was 7 hours, and I think those high sections were like a good portion of it, of just me being like, yeah, you know what, I think I can, and like knowing I could, but like really like proper trying. And I was sweating because we did it in winter, so the heating was cranked up all the way.
Sure.
So I was also boiling hot from just doing like vocals for 7 hours straight.
Yeah.
And like afterwards, like they went, oh, should we go for a beer? I'm like, I don't really feel social at the moment. I just want to go. I want to go home. I don't even want to fucking talk. I just want to go to sleep.
Oh yeah, dude. And good job not drinking a beer after 7 hours of harsh vocals. Smart move.
Well, I had a big, massive like tub of water I made sure I'd like warmed up to room temperature, so it wasn't too cold, wasn't too warm, and just kept it like that. I was just drinking that the entire. I went through I think it like a couple like 2 liters, and I went through an entire bottle of that.
Oh hell yeah,
so,
dude!
Yeah, it was.
That's the way, and you're right. Like it takes so much out. Like my longest recording, I think you've got me beat. My longest recording session that I remember was 6 hours. So I think you've got me beat by an hour. But yeah, after it, it's like, no offense to anybody, but I don't want to see anyone's fucking face for the rest of the day. I want to sit in. Oftentimes, one thing that I do after like a heavy recording session, especially now that we would just record where I live, is Nico will leave, and then I just go and I just sit in a hot shower, and I'm just surrounded by steam, and I'm just like, existentially like just because it's so draining. You have to be so aware of your body.
Right?
Yeah, and it's more than you're used to, and so like hyper awareness of like your laryngeal placement, your ribs, your soft palate, blah, 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 all these things. You're just like, I just want to not exist for a little while. So I feel you entirely.
Oh yeah, I think so. Like when I was doing the highs, we had like the mic positions a little bit higher, so like I could like really stretched out. I don't know. I found like stretching out sort of helped me a little bit weirdly. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why? Because I didn't like crouching down. Like I don't know. I think like just kind of opening up helps a little bit. But
producers will do that, man. Producers will do that. They'll be like, I'm so focused on getting this sound. We're gonna get you in like a super weird, unnatural stance, and I'm not gonna be worried about you straining. Here we go. I mean, hey, I bet it sounds dope. You'll have to send me that track so I can check it out. But I will say
now, I'm not a massive fan of him because I'm like, I think I've practiced a little bit more, and like I've been like, I could have done way better there. And like, so like it's been like a year since it were released. So now I just listen to it back, and I hate the lyrics because we basically restructured the entire song in the studio. It was like a 5-minute song, got restructured to 2 minutes, and none of the lyrics I had fit. So all of them like sort of either off the top of my head or from my bandmates being at the back going, what have you said this next? That sounds good. And he's like, okay, yeah, well, we paid for the studio time. I'm not going to waste it. So like,
yeah.
And now looking back on it, I can hear a lot of the places I fucked up, a lot of places that I could have done better, and a lot of the places I don't like and would have just completely just not done. So I've critiqued myself on it and like really thought, nah. So for the next track, I'm just doing like everything the opposite to how I did there.
Yeah. You'll do that forever though. Like I listen back to Liminal Rite, and most songs I'm like, I should have done that different, or oh, that high, that low, I could have opened up a little bit better. I could have done this a little. So that's just gonna be your life. That's just the life of a vocalist.
Oh yeah, when we spoke to vocalists in the past, like we've always talked about like how hard it is to be like completely satisfying. Because even after that recording session, I listened to the premix going, but I just wish I had like one more day to record those vocals and had more time to sit on it, because it was like push and go. So yeah, I don't think you can ever listen to it back and think, oh yeah, that was perfect. Because
No,
you're
you never
always going to
can.
critique it.
You never can. One of the most important lessons I learned that I applied to my studio time and everything, I actually learned when I was a painter, not like an artistic painter, like paint and drywall.
Yeah.
I was learning how to patch holes in the wall. I was working for the university where I went, Northern Arizona University, and the guy who was training me, you mix the mud, right, the seal, and you put it on there, and you've only got so much time to smooth it out, right? And if you keep going, the texture of the mud gets a little ripped, it gets like some chatter on it, and you can't fix it. You got to just walk away. And so I remember being like, oh no, like I'm doing this wrong. It's kind of uneven. And the guy who was training me was like, you got to walk away. It's done now. And I remember being like, that's a good life lesson. Sometimes you just got to walk away. You got to accept that that's where it's going to be, and you just move along with it. So yeah, it's one of those instances for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah. So now that you guys have you sort of coined the term death gaze, was that like a natural progression for the band, or did it start with an idea of with the immersion of shoegaze and then the rawness of death metal? I read like an interview, I don't know if it was you or yourself or a different member was saying that you guys are sort of creating this death gaze sound.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's kind of a lot to it. So, I am not sure that we like coined or invented it. There was an article that got released that said that I was claiming to have invented it.
That's what I read, so I wanted to get you taking it.
I have never claimed to have invented any genre. I went and I read that article, and I was like, I'm learning a bunch of things about myself that I didn't know. How fortunate. Now, I will say that we wear so there have been other bands, I think, that have been called death gaze before. I'm not confident that we're the first. And there are certainly bands that we sound like. However, I will say that we do very much wear the genre on our sleeve, right? And that I'm totally down with. Archspire had I think they still do, but they had all their shirts that were like "Stay Tech Death." They were never claiming that they invented tech death, but they were wearing the genre very much forward, and that we are definitely doing, because you just don't hear a lot of people use the term death gaze a lot, and I do think that our sound is different enough to where we can't really be considered deathcore. We can't really be considered death metal. We've certainly got some proggy elements. We've certainly got some post metal and some post black metal elements. But I think this sound is different enough to warrant us utilizing the term death gaze. But the claims that we're the only death gaze band, or that no one has ever sounded like us, or that we invented the genre, those things I don't agree with.
I think this is relevant, to be honest. I'm Mark. I invented the death gaze.
Oh God, I know. Yeah, and like I told y'all, I don't even write the majority of the music. So for me to say I invented a genre, if the genre was invented, which it was not, it would be Nico, because he does the majority of the writing. I do really like the genre tag though, because I think it does describe our music pretty well. It's aggressive enough to have the death from deathcore and death metal in there, because we do still sometimes have the breakdowns of deathcore, and we do still have the aggression of death metal. But then the gaze part obviously comes from shoegaze, and if you were to put a Kardashev song and then a shoegaze song right next to each other, it wouldn't be super apparent that oh yeah, they've got shoegaze elements. But we take a lot of inspiration from shoegaze with open ambient sections. Things being one of the biggest criticisms that we get, which we're never gonna change, is that we're a little bit washed out, right? A little bit more reverb than people are sometimes comfortable with, a little bit more ambient, tremolo picking or movement of sound than people are comfortable with. But that's what we like, right? And those inspirations do come from shoegaze and post black metal and things like that. So I think the genre works, and I do like the fact that we wear it forward a little bit. But other bands can be death gaze too.
It's cool though, because it's got this nice sort of vibe to the music where I can headbang to it, I can cook to it, I can it's as relaxing as it is brutal. So I think that's kind of important. and it's not just one dimensional in that sense. It's like
Sure.
many layers.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're going for. So I'm really glad to hear it. I'm really glad to hear that. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, I think it's a definitely it's a very interesting mix. What you're going for. I really like the sort of shoegazy inspired stuff that's coming out. Like we've got like a black metal artist mixing shoegaze in there as well. And I think like it's nice because it's nice to have something other than just screaming happening while she like sort of listen to music. So yeah, that I think it is what you're going for is a very interesting sound, and I really like it. One thing I kind of want to sort of get into is I've been noticed obviously on your socials for the band and everything like that. It feels like there's a very consistent and concise sort of focus on the image of obviously promo in this album. What sort of the thought process is behind those sort of techniques that you use into obviously promo it, as well as like the art itself, who designed it and stuff like that. If you can sort of go into that.
Yeah, for sure. So as far as like the mindset behind marketing, this is our first major release on Metal Blade. We had a re-release of The Bearing of Shadows. That was just a 3-song like demo, really. That's like it wasn't like a huge thing. Was it 3 songs or was it 4? Shit, it's our own thing. I don't remember. Maybe it was 4. I don't know. But it was small. Right. And it did, it didn't get a lot of traction as we expected because it's a re-release, right? I mean, it did well for what it was. But this is our first big release. So a lot of what we're doing is we're actually just taking Metal Blade's lead. We're saying like, okay, Metal Blade, y'all have been, I'm pretty sure Metal Blade has been around since before I was born. I was born in 88 and I think Metal Blade started in 83. I was like, and so we're all like, you know exactly what you're doing. And so they'll make a lot of suggestions to us and we follow that. Like this interview, for example, Metal Blade will email us, and they'll be like, hey, here's the calendar. Who can take you these? They're requesting you. And like, I'll move my lessons around as needed just to make it work. In addition to that, Nico has been working really hard to make some of the artwork, make some of the promos, really kind of push. We have like a Discord that's just for the band members and the Metal Blade peeps, and we'll talk strategy, and the goal is to just get it out to as many people as possible, to have the biggest splash possible. And we don't know what kind of splash it's going to be because this is new territory for us, but I think it'll be the biggest we've had so far. Now, as far as the artwork, that was a really, really cool situation. So we initially reached out to the guy who did the artwork for The Bearing of Shadows. His name is, I don't know his last name. I know his first name is Carl. The last initial is E. And I mostly know him as Existential Yogurt or Yogurt because that's his tag on Instagram. So when we talk about him in the band, we call him Yogurt because that's what I know him as.
That's pretty cool.
But we gave him the concept and what we wanted it to look like, and he was like, hey guys, like, so and this is the mark of a very good professional. He was like, hey guys, I see the vision. That's not really me, that's not my style, but let me recommend to you somebody who can really help out. Carl and the woman who did our artwork for this album, Faith Valoro, they both live in the Philippines, and so they just networked. I think they're friends or something. And so we reached out to her, and she was like, oh, totally, I got this. And so she made us, a sort of mock up, and it looked awesome, and we just went with it, right? She did a crazy good job. It's beautiful, and that's kind of why we've made it so heavy in the promo, because we're like, damn, these paintings are good. At least they look good to us, right? And people seem to like them. So yeah, the forefront of the artwork is just because we're proud of the work she did. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
definitely. It's
obviously
it is very much a striking painting. I noticed like it immediately when obviously I looked at you guys' Spotify, because it's like it stands out from your previous releases like really well as well.
It does, yeah.
So yeah, it is a very beautiful piece.
Cool. Yeah, well, I'm glad you think so.
Oh yeah. So obviously you're the goat of reactions and breaking down certain songs and vocal patterns. Has there been like one vocalist in particular that you can say you think is the best? Like, that they've got the techniques all down, like you think they're really like leading the way for like not how metal vocalists and vocal lines should be, but just who you're like a personal fan of and you think that they're just changing the game completely?
You know, that's a hard one because I actually don't think that there's a such thing as like a best.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, there's some jets I live right by the airport and there's some jets going over.
It's okay.
No,
hopefully that's not getting picked up over the over
It's
the
not
mic.
too bad, yeah.
Okay, cool. I think objectively there's no way to say that someone is the best. Really at anything, unless you have like two people literally next to each other and you're only comparing them. But like, for example, my favorite metal vocalist is Travis Ryan. He would not be the best pick for like, you know, a sub in for Josh Groban, right? Like that would be unless he's got some chops I'm not aware of, that would be a bad choice, right? So, you know, also sometimes like, sure, there's a vocalist who has a bajillion different techniques, but then there's another vocalist who only uses like two, but fuck, they use them so well. So for me, I'm really impressed by a vocalist when I feel like they are writing for the song and when they are writing for their voice versus just doing stuff on top of the song. That being said, some vocalists that I think do that really well are Travis Ryan. Courtney LaPlante, I think, does it really, really well. She's kind of in a space where a lot of vocalists, in my opinion, are a little samey. You know exactly which note they're going to sing before they sing it every time. I don't have that experience with very much. I feel like she's really writing for the music and for herself, which is cool. So Travis Ryan, Courtney LaPlante. I think Dickie Allen's doing a really good job too, because like a lot of people, like, he just kind of, like, having spoken with him, he just kind of gets in there and experiments and has fun and is not really thinking about like, you know, what's the cool thing, what's the trend. He's just like, what if I plug my nose while I scream? I don't fucking know. And that music asks for that type of experimentation, right? So I think, you know, if you were just to ask, Alex Tan as well from Black Tongue.
He's insane.
He's insane.
Insane. Because I've seen Black Tongue twice live.
Oh, really?
And like, I always like, there was always a skeptic part of me going, okay, you know, like how much of this is like production trickery and how much is it? And then when I saw him live, I was there like, Jesus fucking crap. Like it is fills a room. I would honestly bet that guy doesn't really even need a microphone sometimes. It's like, geez, it's just so impactful. Like it's like insane.
Yeah, he's wild. I would love to have him on the channel. I don't know if we've ever reached out to him, but if they drop anything new, I'm gonna be like, hey buddy, how you doing? How you doing? Right? Yeah, those are the first that come to mind, I think.
Oh yeah, I think it's like it's very layered in sort of like when you look at it in screaming and well just singing in general. Like there's certain techniques that sort of, like just some people do better. It might just even be down to just like anatomy. And it's just like I think it's so hard to be like they're the definitive best person in metal right now, because it's like yeah, but this guy can do this. It's like, yeah, but this guy can do that. It's like it'll just constantly be a back and forth of like, oh yeah, but you know, like this guy's technique on this like bit, like on this scream is way better than this guy's. But it's like, but that guy's highs are that better than that guy's. Like it's just gonna constantly be like that.
Subjective, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's very subjective.
And you know, the funny thing is, like, you would think that with my career and what I do for YouTube, I would have really strong opinions on who's best, but I've never really known how to breach those conversations. Like, I don't know how to have them. Like I'll be hanging out with friends and they'll be like, hey Mark, do you like Star Trek? And I'm like, yeah, I love Star Trek. And they'll be like, oh, I don't really like it. I think Star Wars is better. And I'm like, oh, like, cool. Like, and if like people start arguing over which is better, I'm usually just sitting there being like, this is so stupid. Neither of you can prove that one is better, and all the things you're saying are just describing your preferences versus like an objective argument as to why one is better. So, you know, if somebody were to ask me like, Mark, who's better, Dickie Allen or Will Ramos? The only answer I could give is who I enjoy listening to more. I couldn't really say who's better, because it's like they're different bands, they're different vocalists, they're different people. And like, what value is this conversation really bringing to the table, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the best way I sort of judge it is like how much do they sound like. If I just listen to their vocals, no instrumentals, how quickly would it take me to recognize that it's that vocalist?
Sure.
I think that's how I differentiate, sort of, because it's like there's some people that are really unique and you can listen to them and go, that is straight away know who they are. But there's also some people that blur into like the sort of like the atmosphere of just that's how that's just how those vocalists should be in like metalcore, for example. You know, it's like everyone kind of tries to like sort of copying Sam Carter in some ways, or depending on what sort of type of metalcore you go for. But like some people like try replicating like the guy that they listen to the most, but don't ever really focus on, yeah, but how can I make it sound like me?
Yeah.
So that's how I judge it normally.
I think if you were going to have a metric, that would actually be a pretty good one. That would be a pretty good one. How much do they stand out as far as tone? Like, do they sound like other people? That was a strategic pause because I got to piss.
No worries.
That's all good.
So that strategic pause will let you cut this out really easily. So I'll be back in like, I don't know, a minute.
No worries.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll book the match after this.
Well, it's just sending off an email, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like I hope they respond to the one, because it's been a month now, so I don't know if they'll. But then again, I don't think they're getting a lot of business through the printing at the moment. I think that's why they kind of like the email back so quickly. But it's pretty cool. Like obviously you only live around the corner. So
have you already prepared the email then?
No, I haven't prepared it, but it's literally just a case of us going, yeah, that quote's great. You know, we'll go with that.
We've already done that, haven't we?
No, I haven't said that yet. Because I didn't want to go.
You said what the quote is, didn't you?
Yeah, I've got the quote from him, but I wasn't going to say, yeah, that quote's great, and then get an invoice through going, oh, but we can't pay it yet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
all right, okay.
So yeah,
but we can go ahead of it after this then. We'll just sort of send the email, and then does it come out straight away?
You just got to pay the invoice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Here you go.
Right. Should we do a clap, Brad, just to sync up the audio?
Yep.
Yeah.
Boom. So yeah, so sort of getting to the end point of the interview now. One way that we always like to leave it is, what advice would you give to your younger self, and what advice would you give to like a new vocalist starting out?
To my younger self and to a new vocalist starting out. Goodness, to my younger self, that would assume that my current self knows what the fuck I'm doing. I think to my younger self, I would say be a little bit more diligent with like practicing regularly vocally, just to kind of keep it on topic, because I definitely, like, at the beginning of like Kardashev, was the vocalist who I only practiced when we had an album we were writing. Beyond that, you know, I'd go stretches of months not making any sort of distortion whatsoever. And I think that had I practiced, you know, more consistently, then some of the things on this album would have been a little easier. But then at the same point, like, what can you do? We're here now. And then for like a new vocalist, this is my biggest thing. This is well, I've got a couple, but like, don't give a shit about sounding good for the first like 6 months to a year. Like, do not care about sounding good. Focus on comfort and control, right? Comfort and control. Those are the most important things. Because if I just do this, hey, like, let me ask you guys, point blank, honest answer, does that sound like cool? No, not really, right? Like, if somebody was like, yo guys, how's my false chord? Hey, you know, you'd be like, it's definitely a false chord and it sounds really steady and healthy. And the fact that it sounds steady and healthy and in control, that is all that matters at the beginning point. Yep. Also be very, I don't want to say skeptical, but just have an ear out for any advice that you get on the internet. There is some really good advice on the internet. Like, I'm not one of these people who's like, you know, trying to like passively make myself like a pillar of metal vocals. There are great instructors out there that are not me. However, there are also videos on the internet that you can tell somebody found a way to make it work for themselves, but they don't actually understand the voice.
Yeah.
They don't understand the thing they're doing. Yeah, now they see long term. They're so specific, a chance they're going to help any. And then that, some things just are terrible advice. Like I saw a TikTok the other day. The guy literally says, now, and I'll cut him some slack because he said at the beginning of the video, I'm not a vocal coach, but he said, if it hurts at first, that's totally normal because you need to build tissue. Why? No, like no vocal technique requires scar tissue. And he had thousands of comments being like, thanks, dude, this is so helpful. And I was just like, no scar tissue on your vocal folds. That is very, very, very bad. So yeah, new vocalists, be skeptical. But also the internet's a good place for information. Just think about it before you just start like repeating what you hear from somebody. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I think like that's such an interesting point, because like I think the worst advice I ever got was something very similar, where I approached this guy that I knew did vocals for a little bit and like, how do you do them? He goes, well, I'm just like, what you got to learn is you got to at least throw your voice out like twice before you can really get like good at it. And I was then like, oh, well, me throwing my voice out must be normal then. And when I actually started looking into it, I'm like, no, I'll really fucking my voice up by doing that. So like, there's so much bad advice like people can throw around where it's like, yeah, no, mate, trust me, I know this shit. Do that, and you're there like, okay, and then you years later, I think a year after that, I was then like, I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, and
worse feeling.
Sometimes people, and then, the obvious rebuttal to this is like, well, Mark, you're a guy on the internet. Why should anybody trust you implicitly? And I'm like, they should not, right? They should watch my videos. They should watch somebody else's videos. They should get on Wikipedia or like, Google Scholar, or just, KenHub has it's like an educational website. They've got anatomy diagrams and descriptions. Like, go look at that and compare it to what I'm saying and what these other people are saying. Like, I hope that nobody watches my videos and just implicitly believes everything I say without question. Like, I'm not going to be offended if someone's skeptical of me and they dig around just to make sure that I'm at least mostly like 90% right. That's the goal. So yeah, that's my advice.
Oh yeah,
that's good advice. That's good advice.
Honestly, thank you so much for coming on, by the way. Like I said, me and Nathan have watched tons of your videos. We're loving the direction of the new album. I can't wait to listen to it in full, and the lyrical concept sounds pretty fun as well. So yeah, honestly, thank you, and maybe I'll have to come take a lesson sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you can, or we can just do it over the internet like I normally do. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to kind of highlight the channel and the album. And yeah, email me your bands and your projects and stuff, because I'll check it out. I'll see what's going on. It's always interesting. The people who do the interviews often have projects themselves, and oftentimes they're pretty good too. So it's always fun to learn new music and things like that.
Oh yeah, I honestly, this has been so surreal for me, because I'm not even, when Brad messaged me saying, "Oh, obviously we got you on," I was kind of fangirling a little bit, being like, "Oh my god," because I've literally watched your videos religiously for years.
Awesome.
So honestly, thank you so much for coming on, because it's genuinely been like my most anticipated interview for like such a long time.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, for sure. You're welcome. I had a great time. Great interview. Lots of fun. Lots of good conversation. Yeah, it was great. I liked it.
Yeah, it's been educational as well. I've definitely learned a few things as well. So thank you.
For sure.
And I will definitely be getting a lesson sometime, because I definitely need them.
For sure, dude. Yeah, I'll be happy to help.
No worries. But yeah, it's been great having you on. So yeah.
Take care. All the best.
Take care,
guys. Thanks.